Are we waiting for David?
I'd like to give him a minute or so if possible. I think there's
David should be coming now.
okay.
He had trouble getting the link.
Last night there was 260 or 70 people at a time that were running on that RTM meeting that went pretty late. So some people might be a little tired out today. They did a good job though. That was a good job they did. See this is a public hearing mug, 2 fists, 2 handles.
Pete Minarski's on. I don't know if you need him over or.
Whatever you would like. Whatever you think. It's right now, I'm on a Surface and a large screen, and it's fairly nice proportion. And not only that, but Craig, during my, I want everybody to see the timer.
You want me to show them now?
Whatever you want. Yeah.
Mike, we are live right now, Mike.
Okay, good.
Okay, I'm just letting you know.
You want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will. Yes, I will call that to order. I'm just waiting for David. David, Craig, you have the flag ready, right?
I do now.
I do now.
Jenny Larkin is an attendee. Should we bring her over?
Whatever you like.
David said he's here. Is he an attendee to move over?
I see him. Yep, he's there. There we go.
Okay. So David's picture's up. His picture's up.
Should we bring Jenny over, Craig?
It would relieve some of my stress.
Okay, so we'll bring her over.
Yeah.
David's muted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's time we begin. Can we call this public hearing to order and start with a salute to the flag of our country? As soon as we get that.
There we go.
Here we go. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the 2020 Board of Estimate and Taxation public hearing for the Town of Greenwich fiscal budget that begins July 1 and carries till June 30th of 2021. This is a little unique, very, very unique. Tonight, this is our first virtual public hearing. It's the only one that I know of that's happened in town for a public hearing. Tonight, on behalf of all the BET members, which are in front of you, we have to start with thanking our town IT for all the help, or we would not be here. Jenny Larkin, Craig Jones, the IT staff have been just amazing, not only with our board, but all of the boards, and making this happen. I'd also like to thank Channel 79, who is covering this. If you are on Optimum, it's on Channel 79 on your TV live, and if it's Verizon, it's Channel 24, so you can watch this live. As I mentioned, this is the BET's first public hearing using Zoom. For those who have attended our public hearings in the past, you will know that the BET members are here tonight to listen to you, to listen to the residents in Greenwich, and to hear your thoughts about the budget and the upcoming fiscal year. We have also been receiving public comments through our BET webpage and through our virtual meeting on the town website. We will be accepting forms there until the end of this meeting, and all of those written comments will become public comments that will be attached and part of our permanent minutes. At the beginning of this hearing, we had over 250 comments come in so far, plus all the associated letters that have come in through the budget process. Let's talk about our budget process in town. The Board of Education, our first selectman, our other appointing authorities, all submitted an operational plan and a budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Our finance department set up the fixed charges portion of the budget. Then the first selectman consolidated all of these requests into one budget. The first selectman also consolidated the capital budget for the whole town. The operating and capital budgets were then submitted to the BET. Our BET deliberations by our budget committee were conducted over a period of 6 weeks, consisting of 9 daytime meetings with various department heads mixed in with our normally scheduled meetings. Our budget committee then deliberated to provide the BET with a recommended revised budget. That was the budget being considered by the BET. Then COVID-19, the pandemic virus, happened. As a result of that virus, the BET unanimously decided to postpone the public hearing originally scheduled for March 21 this year, March 21st. As a result of the governor's order, we decided to postpone our public hearing and our decision day approximately 1 month to adapt to these virtual meetings, and the board wanted the opportunity to see the impacts and actions taken by the state and our federal government. Next week, on April 27th, is our decision day. We will finalize a recommended budget, and that budget will be sent to the town's representative town meeting for their deliberations. They have decided in their actions last night to postpone their decision on that budget till June 8th. That is the date that will become their decision day. All of this is approximately being delayed by about a month. So how are we going to do this budget hearing tonight? How are we going to make this work? This is a webinar. As such, you will see the BET members on your screen. However, the BET meeting members will not see you. As we proceed through the night, our clerk, Mr. Drake, Bill Drake, will call the speaker and the next speaker on deck. Remember, we can hear you. If you wish to speak tonight, we ask that you identify yourself by using the virtual hand on the Zoom. Remember, we can't see you, so if you want to speak, you have to use your virtual hand. You will see the feature on the middle of your screen if you're using a PC, and you will see it on the right-hand side of your screen if you're using an iPad. If you are calling in by phone, which you are permitted to do, you must press *9, which raises your hand as if you were on a computer. Speakers will be called in the order their hands are raised. When you are called on, you will be unmuted. You will be asked to state your full name, your organizational affiliation, if any, and if you are representing yourself or a topic you're speaking to. So just let us know who you are, if there's an organization, and what topics you'd like to talk about. You will have 3 minutes for your comments. There will be a visible clock running. There will be a hard stop at 3 minutes. At the end of the 3-minute mark, we will turn your audio off. If you dial in or call in, you must again hit *9 to raise your hand. Because we want to be fair to all speakers on the video, we will be given a 30-second warning for those calling in. However, we will not be doing that for the people who are able to see their screen and watch the clock. BET members want everyone to be able to speak. If you have a position and someone else has stated, feel free to say, I agree with the previous speaker or another speaker, or that you agree with another speaker. We would like every person to have an opportunity to speak once. If time permits, we would be willing to offer a second time. Our goal is to try to be finished by 10 p.m. This is a new territory for all of us. So we ask that you be patient in this undertaking as we undertake this meeting. With that, I will now ask those in attendance to raise their hand if they wish to speak to the proposed budget. And then we'll call on the clerk to start identifying speakers. And I will just add in right now, we have at least a dozen hands that are up. So with that, we're listening. The Greenwich Board of Estimate and Taxation is listening, and here we go. Mr. Drake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First speaker is Susan Rudolph, to be followed by Rob Burton. Ms. Rudolph, please identify yourself, and the floor is yours.
Okay, I think I have unmuted myself. Is it correct? We're good. So thank you, members of the board of the BET, for all the work, all the energy you've had to devote to the budget process this year. You're certainly fulfilling your civic obligations in a most stressful and challenging time. I would like to focus very briefly on two key points. And first, it's unlikely that anyone would disagree with the premise that sports and an active lifestyle play an important role in a young person's development. It's also unlikely that anyone would disagree with the position that Greenwich needs more sports fields. However, lobbying for artificial turf fields at Central Middle School implies disregard of the data and the advice provided by scientists and physicians. It implies that those who are okay with artificial turf are buying into the belief that any harm or injury not evidenced immediately does not exist. Second, it is a myth that installing and maintaining artificial turf is cheaper than natural grass fields. If one takes into consideration the high cost of the initial installation of the artificial turf carpet, its replacement every 8 to 10 years, and the costly and dangerous work of removing and disposing of it, data show natural grass fields are more economical. So I urge you to be fiscally and environmentally responsible, as well as guardians of public health, by voting to fund only natural grass fields at Central Middle School. And I thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Diana Rasek. Sorry if I mispronounced. To be followed by John Blankley.
It says that allowed to talk is not available because Diana Martinez is Rashka is using an older version of Zoom. The only way she can talk is if we promote her to panelist. Jenny, do you want to?
Okay. Craig, I can't see her on the list.
Sorry, I
Could
thought
you-
Rob Burton was next. Did we lose Rob Burton?
Lost him.
Thank you.
She's on the top, Jenny, right before John Blankley. Oh, now she's off. I don't know what happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
I hope I unmuted myself and then I'll
Oh, okay.
mute myself again. Can you guys hear me?
Who is
Yes.
this? State your name.
This is Diana Martinez Rasick. Thank you so much, members of the Board of Estimates and Taxation. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. The threat of the pandemic, followed by the closing of schools, has obviously led to an unprecedented crisis that affects every facet of our lives. But for families of children with special needs, this feeling of crisis is all too familiar. The only difference is that now, without the services our children need, we have lost the feeling of a way forward. Many of our children weren't receiving an appropriate education even before the shutdown of our schools. Many of them had already fallen behind several grade levels in reading and math due to delayed testing, insufficient services, and inappropriate goals. Our children were already treading water in school when the shutdown happened. While all children will regress and lose skills as a result, our children will regress at a faster rate and will take longer to regain the skills they've learned. Many families of special needs students are unable to support our children's learning. Many of us have more than one child with a disability. As we know, disabilities like dyslexia and autism can be genetic. So we can't just put our kids on a computer and watch them learn while we work from home or continue to earn our usual pay. The current distant learning model requires parental support in many forms, from providing a quiet place to work, to helping with technical issues, to reviewing directions. But parents of children with special needs are preventing meltdowns that come from not understanding the material that is largely unmodified for their needs. For our children with autism, we're losing them right before our eyes as they choose to engage in self-stimulation and, in the worst of cases, self-harm. The reality is, in order to survive as a family, we have to ignore our children's education. Families who are essential to the workforce are being forced to leave their special needs children home or quit their jobs. Families of color or who don't speak English face even greater difficulty partnering with schools to prevent their children with special needs from regressing. They're more likely to be required to work for their pay, and if they don't speak English, they can't help children with distance learning content or skills acquisition. Many special needs children whose profile includes anxiety, depression, they're now at an even higher risk of self-harm or harm to others. So when it's safe for everyone to go back to school, our special needs children will need something equivalent to an educational equity stimulus package. We need you to do more than just fund special education in our usual half-hearted way. We need you to work to level a playing field that was never leveled to begin with, but which now has crumbled beneath our feet. I am asking you to fully fund an audit of our special education department. Also, the current formula for funding our schools isn't working. We moved here for the good school system that Greenwich is known for, but the low mill rate prevents the district from granting educational equity to children with special needs. Our teachers, paraprofessionals, and social workers need to be able to deliver individualized services with proper special education student to teacher ratios, and they deserve the training and support to be successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is John Blankley, followed by Dan Ozismere.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, former colleagues. This is actually the first time I've spoken to you since I left the board. Thank you, by the way, all of you, for everything that you're doing currently. So among so many important issues before you, I want to address a rather small issue in terms of money, and that is cops on the avenue. How easy it would be to remove the police department funding for police on the avenue. After all, police were removed from one intersection. They're not deployed on weekends. Safety seems not to be an issue. And of course, we are dealing with more than the usual budget challenges. So why not save the money? The answer to my mind goes beyond money. Greenwich Avenue ranks alongside Worth Avenue, Rodeo Drive, Madison Avenue, all these places that I came to know since I came to America. And our avenue, Greenwich Avenue, is one of the iconic streets in America. And its unique flavor comes from the presence of traffic cops. They're old-fashioned, I know, but they are traditional, and they are the very face of our town to the world. So for me, this is all about image, the image of our town. Now, I do believe that some of you may have no heed for image at a time of financial stress, and I respect that. What I would ask you to consider, however, is that the last time the matter came up, the RTM voted resoundingly to preserve the status quo. And this, of all issues, is one that should again be left, I believe, to the RTM to decide. Therefore, I would ask you to keep the funding and let the RTM speak for the town on whether we should keep our cops on the avenue. I remember when we first came 37 years ago, we drove past the town hall and we thought, this is a wonderful symbol. We drove a little bit further to the street that we now know as Greenwich Avenue. And there they were. And one of my kids, one you know full well, who works in our town, said, "There's Bobby, Daddy." and her sister said, "Police, Daddy, act normal." So I've tried to observe that admonition ever since. It really is something that is special to our town. So I'd ask you whether you believe that the image is important or not, at least put it to the town meeting and let them decide how our town should look in the future. Thanks a lot. All the best, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you. Dan Ozesmeer to be followed by Gregory Piccinino.
Okay, can you hear me? Thank you. I'm Dan Ozesmeer from District 5. I'd like to make some general comments on the fiscal 21 budget. As you noted, the budget in front of us right now was generated before the COVID-19 crisis. And certainly I would ask you to, when you present a budget to the RTM, to present a budget that's based upon current realities, not the realities that the First Selectman and the Board of Ed looked at several months ago. I'm sure you're going to look at things like revenue losses from interest income, building permits, conveyance taxes, et cetera. But those losses that impact the town budget are a very small subset of the losses that the residents of this town are experiencing. For example, we're expected to see the GDP fall by 20 to 30% in the second quarter of 2020. That's 20 to 30%. We're expecting to see unemployment rates go from 3% historic lows to hit potentially 20%. Again, numbers we have not seen since the Great Depression. Individuals are seeing loss of income of 10, 20, 30%, or actually 100% because they're losing their jobs. Retired residents are seeing their portfolios go down by 20 to 30%. And who knows what the property values will be, given, although a lot of people would like to live in the suburbs today, we all know that we are a high income town, and therefore a lot of the wealth required to purchase our homes requires both high paying jobs and wealth. So my point is that while you may look at 2 to 3% changes in the town budget based on revenues, what the residents are feeling is well in excess of what your town of Greenwich budget is feeling. You're looking at a few percent here and there. The residents are looking at scenarios far worse. This ignores the potential impact of what will come from Hartford based upon their already precarious financial position and the taxes that they will likely put down upon Fairfield County. My point is that when you make your decisions about how you set this budget, you cannot just look at very precise financial engineering about what you can do in your budget. You need to understand that the residents are feeling the pain well in excess of what the government is feeling. In addition to it all, we have a pension issue. Right now, our pension plan is reasonably funded. That will not be true once we look at the new valuations. Thank you.
Mr. Piccinino to be followed by Merlin Pearson.
Hi, can you hear? Hello? Hi, can you hear me? No?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I just wanted to speak out against the expenditures for both the Coscob turf field and the Cardinal Field Improvement Project. I fully concur with what Dan said about the economic situation of our community, and the first speaker who spoke out against artificial turf with regards to scientific evidence regarding the impact on young children from artificial turf and the true costs. I would like the BET to remove both items from the budget. We're seemingly seeing tax revenues or an hit to the budget, which has been manifested in the proposal to remove police officers from Greenwich Ave, as well as issues which I do not fully comprehend regarding trash and the possibility of needing to raise taxes to pay for trash removal from Greenwich dump to the incinerator. It's a $15 million expenditure in non-education purposes. Further, these were bid in the environment of economic growth, which we're no longer seeing. So I would imagine even if you delayed it by a year, you would see a significant cut in the expenditures needed. And I also question in the proposals, have they looked at the possibility of having a second MISA when we start digging into the soil around Greenwich High School? Are we going to find ourselves with another Superfund cleanup? I exaggerate on that, but I would ask that the BET show fiscal discipline in this moment and remove those from the budget. That's it.
Merlin Pearson, followed by Jennifer Kutai.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. I want to thank the members of the BET for making this meeting happen and for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Merlin Pearson. I'm a member of the Food Services Committee, and our committee has spent roughly 2 years looking into the issue of implementing reusable wares in the Greenwich Public School cafeterias. For over a decade, advocates have promoted a sustainable alternative to styrofoam trays in the school system. And while the Board of Ed finally eliminated toxic styrofoam from lunchrooms last year, student meals are now served on disposable trays. Some of you may believe that the district should continue to employ single-use trays and other disposable wares, particularly given the health concerns around this pandemic. And others may feel that this is simply an environmental issue with no financial implications. However, these disposables are expensive, wasteful, and pedagogically dishonest, and may put our children's health at risk. Each year, disposable trays and other wares cost $62,000 to purchase, and another $39,000 is spent to dispose and incinerate this waste. In total, over $101,000 of taxpayer money is literally tossed in the trash, and I don't see this as being fiscally responsible. 500,000 of non-recyclable trays are trashed annually at a cost to taxpayers and the detriment of our soil and air quality. The pilot of the dishwashing system at New Lebanon School proved that a reusable ware system will cut 80% of cafeteria waste. Trash reduction is a priority of our state and town due to the looming waste crisis and the rising cost of trash disposal and recycling. As the largest institution in Greenwich, the school district is responsible for generating a significant percentage of municipal solid waste. However, cafeteria trash can be substantially reduced through the implementation of a sustainable and cost-effective reusable ware system. The public schools should lead by example and take this significant step to save money and reduce waste. The use of disposable also teach our children that our wasteful behaviors are acceptable. Our schools should instead model environmentally sustainable and civic responsibility as taught in our classrooms. Finally, these disposable wares can contain toxins like PFAS associated with serious adverse health impacts. Manufacturers are not required to disclose the chemical content of products. In an abundance of caution, these molded fiber trays should be replaced with safer reusables. It is unacceptable that Greenwich Public Schools employ single-use disposables. There's a better way, a reusable ware system including durable trays and utensils sanitized by dishwashers, and I urge the BET to approve the $175,000 for this system, conditioned on Board of Education approval of the most cost-effective, sustainable, and effective plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Kutai, followed by Warren Silver.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I want to preface my speech tonight by noting what happened to our daughter in the Greenwich Public Schools occurred prior to Dr. Jones becoming the superintendent of schools. Our daughter Lily is currently a 5th grader on the eastern side of Greenwich. Unfortunately, because she did not receive the necessary special education services she so desperately needed until the end of the 3rd grade, she will now be faced with an extremely difficult uphill educational battle. This will require thousands upon thousands of dollars to try and bridge an almost impossible gap. During a recent outside evaluation, we were told by a doctor that her sensitive period of language skills will end shortly. In layman's terms, the damage done to our daughter is irreparable. This same doctor told us Lily's language skills are those of a child educated in an inner city school, not a child educated in the Greenwich public schools. It has become a cancer in our lives, but we will never give up on our daughter, who views being sent to a private school as a punishment. Lily wants nothing more than to stay in public school with her twin sisters and her friends that she has had since her days at the Putnam Indian Field School. But tonight isn't just about Lily. We are here tonight as representatives of hundreds of parents who fear retribution and therefore cannot speak out publicly. We are here tonight as representatives of parents who both work and conceivably cannot afford to hire an attorney to fight. We are here tonight as representatives of single parents who can barely get through their daily struggles, let alone face a brutal fight that should never be. In the Chief PPS Officer's report from February, it states, and I quote, 38% of students being referred for reading issues are in high school. Children learn to read by the 3rd grade. How is this not being addressed for that many students until high school? Early intervention is not just best practice. It is more economical. We have the data to support this, yet we continue to do nothing with it. We are setting these children up for failure. There is no justification for this. In that same report on page 11, there are over 200 children who enter special education every year, and I quote, all budgeted positions are allocated prior to the beginning of the school year. As of today, some schools have had more than 25 students who have entered special education, and yet staffing is decreasing. You wouldn't run a business like that. Why would you run our schools that way? Referrals for behavioral issues continue to rise from elementary to high school, yet we have no behavioralists providing direct intervention. We could see these numbers decline if we did. We are here tonight pleading with you to address the severe underfunding. Don't allow what has happened to our Lily to happen to any other child in this district. We are trying to work alongside this current Board of Education. We are trying to bridge the gap for the betterment of our community. Please meet us halfway. This COVID crisis should remind us that public education is a vital public good. We must reach.
Thank you. Warren Silver, to be followed by Carolyn Peterson.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Thanks for doing this evening. I really appreciate it. The first comment I want to get into before I speak about artificial turf is the BET should really kind of sit back a minute and feel how lucky they are to know in hindsight that 25 million Americans are going to be unemployed by the end of this week. And at the heart of it, it's going to hit Greenwich in a very hard way. So don't think for 1 minute that this is not going to hit Greenwich and all of the other towns around us. So these matters should be taken into consideration when you think about being fiscally conservative. Because if any time to be fiscally conservative, now is the time. With that said, Greenwich residents have spoken. 3,000 eligible Greenwich voters strongly disagree with the Board of Education's decision to install artificial turf at Central Middle School, making our petition against artificial turf at Central Middle School the most supported petition in Greenwich in a decade. I believe that the first selectman made the correct decision by supporting natural grass over artificial turf at Central Middle School. The BET should support our first selectman. The BET should stop wasting taxpayers' money. Grass at Central Middle School is more economical. Soil at Central Middle School is healthy. Different circumstances merit different solutions. Proponents for artificial turf at Central Middle School only represent 736 supporters, and they are not required to be Greenwich residents or 18 years old. Proponents for artificial turf are not led by parents, grandparents, and taxpayers, but by the OGRCC, GYFL, and other town profit and non-for-profit organizations, as well as employees who feel they have a right to these fields and to weigh into this debate. They do not. The main point is that, one, grass at Central Middle School is more economical, and two, the argument against for playable time is solved with option one. Option one consideration is 177,000 square feet. That would allow the town to put in 3 fields that are regulated size of 55,000 square feet each, with each field having 25 to 35 hours of playing time. There is more than sufficient time to solve all of the playable hours needed. So my point is, be fiscally conservative, grass is more economical, support the first selectman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carolyn Peterson, to be followed by Brooks Harris.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Carolyn Peterson. I'm speaking with you as co-president of Old Greenwich School PTA. And I'm here on behalf of the parents and teachers at our school to express our support of the Board of Education's budget as it relates to the allocation of funds to a design study in 2021 for Old Greenwich School. Old Greenwich School was built in 1902, making it the oldest education building in the district. Today, the structure is not ADA compliant. As the school is spread out across 5 floors plus a ramp, it presents serious safety issues. The building is not accessible to handicapped students, teachers, parents, or other community members. Even when the school is utilized by the town of Greenwich as a polling station, it has to rely on temporary infrastructure to allow citizens to enter the building. Our front exterior staircase is a safety hazard with concrete flaking and patched every year, but still crumbling. Our back staircase is in a constant state of disrepair, even missing steps for months at a time. Due to the age of the current construction, repairs and upgrades cannot be undertaken by the facilities department for fear of uncovering issues in the walls. As an example, it took years of advocacy from parents and the community to replace a water fountain that no longer provided basic access to the students in grades 3 through 5. The renovation plan would take into consideration mitigation of the flooding that is taking place in our lowest levels due to the rising water table in Old Greenwich. It would be very disruptive to our community should our school be closed due to mold, as happened to our neighbors in Stamford. Lastly, given the school's open presence in town and lack of fencing or security, the possibility of an additional wing with enclosed courtyard under consideration would address obvious capacity and safety issues. Our community needs and deserves an accessible, safe building that can serve all students regardless of their physical abilities and welcome all members of the community. We are proud of our teachers and staff and believe our building should be a reflection of all the amazing moments that occur inside and out on a daily basis. In summary, we fully support Old Greenwich School's designation as a priority school for capital improvements. As a PTA, we surveyed our parent body and 93% of the respondents said they support the budget. On behalf of the parents at OGS, we thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Brooks Harris, to be followed by Cricket Diamond.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Brooks Harris from RTM District 10. My comments tonight, though, are my own. First, I want to thank the BET for all the hard work being done. This is not an easy process, especially this year. So thank you. Given the current economic crisis, we need to examine our spending and find places to save money to offset what is likely to be dramatic reductions in revenues. Residents are facing losses of both income and retirement savings, so we need to help by keeping taxes as low as possible. I'd like to see a reduction in the mill rate for the upcoming year. While we should use some general fund balance to keep taxes low, we should make sure we do not deplete it too much given the uncertainty ahead. We can keep the balance within our targeted range and above 10% of our budget while still reducing taxes. We need to reduce our capital budget for next year, both to reflect the fact that projects will be pushed back and that times are tough, so we need to spend wisely. Anything discretionary we can push back until we get more economic clarity We should. While we will likely cut capital given the current crisis, we should prioritize maintenance and not skimp on that. Cutting maintenance leads to long-term problems and could cost us even more over time. We should also continue to focus on the 15-year capital plan to make sure we anticipate problems well in advance. I commend the BET for improving this year's plan by making it more realistic, but it still needs further refinement. Finally, I strongly urge us to move to a more sustainable and economic solution for the Nathaniel Witherail. Even before this crisis, our annual subsidies by some counts were over $5 million a year. I can only imagine what it is now. We must stabilize this, even if it means bringing a more experienced operator to manage the operation and stop the downward spiral. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. Cricket Diamond to be followed by CHAR. Please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good evening. My name is Cricket Diamond, and I'm president of Greenwich PTA Council. The council represents 15 PTAs, the interests of approximately 9,000 students and their families and teachers who are also town residents, employees, or both. We want to begin by thanking all of you for your service to our town and for the important work that you do on our behalf of our wonderful community, especially in light of the current circumstances. And we appreciate having the opportunity to Zoom in and speak in support of the Board of Education budget. Simply stated, we support the Board of Education budget. On the operating side, the budget represents a 2% increase over the 1920 budget. The budget continues the strategy of directing resources to schools and classrooms where students reap the most benefit. We believe that it is essential to fully fund the strategic priority of personalized learning to increase achievement for all students. In addition, we wholeheartedly support the funds needed for special education. We support the proposed capital budget. We believe that the projects laid out in the capital request are necessary and important. First, funds for regular maintenance and structural upgrade projects. We all know that it is financially prudent and less expensive in the long run to ensure that the schools are kept in good condition and not allowed to deteriorate. And we appreciate your long-standing recognition of and support for these investments. Second, there's funds required to address capital issues. Focus projects include the GHS entryway, GHS Cardinal Stadium, the feasibility study for Old Greenwich School, the update to Julian Curtis School, and field improvements. PTA Council and the associated PTAs absolutely support the inclusion of all these capital items in the 2021 capital budget. Both the capital and operating budgets are fiscally responsible and represent necessary spending and investment. We believe that cuts to these budgets would be imprudent and would negatively impact the students of Greenwich Public Schools. We appreciate that this board shares our vision of excellence, and we thank you very much for working so hard to create a strong and viable future for the tens of thousands of children who will rely on our school system in the next decade and the decades to come. We ask you to pass the operating and capital budgets for the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comes Shar. Please identify yourself, followed by William Stowe.
I think that's me. I'm Charlene Barnes. I didn't realize I signed up just as Shar. Sorry about that. I'm Charlene Barnes. I live in Old Greenwich, and I have lived here for over 25 years. I want to talk about the changes proposed for the roads around Binney Park and the bridge. I am very concerned about these. As you know, when you enter Old Greenwich and you drive down to it, it gives a real idea of the character of the town. It gives a lot of satisfaction to current residents and a lot of joy to potential residents as well too. And it gives an idea what the town is about and what we have to offer to people. I am personally have a problem with the proposal to put in new roads to raise it. I think it will change the look of the road drastically, but I realize that there are problems. Most of us do realize that there are issues, the residents of Old Greenwich, and we prioritize them to different levels. So I know some people who would be very happy to have that road made into a very smooth mini highway so they can get down quickly. My son is among them. I know a lot of people who'd like to make sure that there are the features in place that allow traffic to be slow and allow people to appreciate the beautiful view. We have heard from people who know what they're talking about, engineers and architectural drawings showing what it'll look like when all the proposed changes are made, and talking about the banks in Binney Park, and it will be a drastic change. The problem I have is that although I know people who are on different sides of exactly what should be done and have different priorities, I don't know anyone who is happy that it's happening without any sort of hearing, without any sort of explanation, and without an ability to feel that all of our concerns and priorities have been heard and answered. I also wonder, just from my personal experience, who is in favor of all these changes? Why is this happening? And why is it happening without a public hearing? I am very concerned about what's happening, and also with the virus and the situation we have now, it would be impossible to have a real open public hearing before all of this happens. And it just also will be a very, very expensive project. So it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that we would have a chance to talk about what we're talking about. And so I just ask that you do not approve this year, and we have a chance to have appropriate hearings where people can be heard and that cost and the benefits can be considered. Thank you.
Mr. Stowe, to be followed by Jamie Vole.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate, my name is William Stowell, and I appreciate this time to talk with all of you. I would like to, I'm a special educator with children in the school district, and I would like to first start off by saying what an excellent job the school, Old Greenwich School, is doing, and Eastern Middle School is doing with my children. The teachers and the staff are doing an exceptional job, and I just want to applaud their good work. I prepared a statement which I would like to share with you. As a parent of children in the Old Greenwich Elementary School and a special educator, I find that the Old Greenwich School edifice is not in compliance with the American Disabilities Act, requiring reasonable accommodation to a number of individuals entering the school building, and thus not allowing their least restrictive environment for students, staff, and pertinent community. The historic 3 to 5 floor school is only accessible through stairwells on its second and third floor, directly becoming an obstacle to students who are in wheelchairs, senior citizen grandparents with physical or health impairments, as well as parents with baby strollers and youth and adults with temporary physical impairments, such as those in crutches and/or health conditions. To retain the historical integrity of the front of the school, it appears that a gentle sloping ramp would fundamentally alter the architectural aspect of the main entrance, given that the main doors are about 20 feet above the ground floor. To that end, an elevator that allows access to all the floors would be the most financially and architecturally convenient modification to the interior of the building. Such an addition would not place undue financial hardship, and it would bring the building into legal compliance with ADA regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jamie Vole, to be followed by Candace Garthwaite.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. My name is Jamie Vole. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a parent of 3 young children who attend Greenwich Public Schools. I am representing a group of over 200 parents who are asking for the BET and BOE to prioritize security and safety in schools. We realize there are other priorities right now with the current crisis, but we ask that this be a priority when things are back up and running. We have learned that Greenwich is one of the only school districts in Fairfield County that does not have the most current and comprehensive security measures in place. In our research, we found that most, if not all, of the surrounding towns in Fairfield County are equipped with school security guards cameras and monitors throughout the school, and scan security guard tags for all staff and visitors in order to gain entry into the building, among other things. Greenwich currently does not have any of these measurements in place, and as far as we know, there are no current plans in place to change that anytime soon. Our mission is to work together to better understand and prioritize the security needs and to discuss with you what we can do to help bring our schools up to a more current and adequate level of security. We've met with Tony Jones and have expressed our concerns to her. We understand this type of project needs to be a district-wide expense and should cover all of our schools, which is why we are asking for this to be a priority in the town budget. We feel as though security for the students and staff has been overlooked and not prioritized in the past. In 2019, there were 25 shooting incidents that occurred on school grounds or during, sorry, get emotional, during school-sponsored events in America. March 2020 was the first March without a school shooting in the US since 2002, and that is due to the schools being closed. And we know we don't have to remind you that the most deadly and tragic school shooting occurred in our own state less than 10 years ago. We are aware that this is a very sensitive topic and needs to be treated as such. That said, we would like to keep communications with the town private as much as possible. We fear that time is of the essence here and we need to be proactive and not, God forbid, reactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace Garthwaite, followed by Tina Corpus.
Good evening. I think I'm live.
Yes.
Candace Garthwaite, Old Greenwich resident for 28 years, member of the District 6 RTM, and speaking on my own behalf, and speaking also for the Eastern Greenwich Preservation Association. Thank you to all of you, the First Selectmen, the town department leaders and Board of Ed leaders, for your dedication and commitment to our lovely town. It's much appreciated. My remarks are directed toward the capital budget item, Sound Beach Bridge replacement for $3.5 million. The name of the project is a misnomer. It is a bridge replacement and a 2.5-foot bridge and road raise. You have received a copy of our petition asking the BET to withdraw the $3.5 million from the fiscal 21 budget and delay the project for 1 year so that there can be public hearings. It has been said that Old Greenwich is a very vocal community. Yes, we are vocal, and we're very protective of the beauty and historic significance of our village. What do we know about this project? We know that the bridge at the Rotary was deemed in poor condition by the Connecticut DOT in 2017. We know that DPW secured a state grant to replace the bridge. We know that 2 years ago, P&Z denied a municipal improvement that included the more extensive 2.5-foot road raise and the oversized rotary. We do know that DPW says the road must be raised to allow for the passage of emergency vehicles. And yet, over 200 curious and concerned residents signed our petition because they want public hearings. They want to understand the impact of the road raise. We can assume that the road raise will cost $1.5 million, and yet it is not described in any public documents. We have not seen any plans, renderings, or sectional drawings, and we do not know the impact on nearby trees in the park. We can assume that the new bridge will be as high as the top of the current stone walls. Will this require additional railings? What will the signage look like? We do not have access to an analysis of the water flows north and south of the bridge once it is raised. We are asking for communication. We're asking for a forum where the public can listen to the town's analysis and rationale for doing more than replace the bridge. We want to understand what alternatives to mitigate flooding were considered and not chosen. We want to hear from first responders with actual response times and alternate routes in and out of Old Greenwich. It is no secret that Old Greenwich is vulnerable to climate change. It is very possible that the BET will need to take a hard look at infrastructure funding. Yes, we should use state dollars to replace the bridge. Using state taxpayer dollars without the proper and necessary public hearings is not appropriate if you're going to raise the road.
Thank you. Tina Corpus, to be followed by Caroline Lerum.
This is Tina Corpus. Can I be, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Tina Corpus and I live in RTM District 10 in Glenville. I'm here to ask the town to find prudent operational savings, eliminate non-essential capital spending for the fiscal year 21 budget, and that it strive for a negative mill rate. For most people in our town and in general, our homes are our most valuable assets. We moved to this town 14 years ago from New York City and threw the long ball, if you will, and bought a house for our young family. We did so with the hope that our single biggest family financial asset would hold its value or appreciate, and it has done neither. For those wanting to sell their homes, they have been in a multi-year waiting game of watching the market get soft while paying increasing taxes on those very same depreciating assets. The BET cannot control, nor is it responsible for the many factors that have played into that loss of equity. And I further know that many excellent public servants, including the current BET, have worked to hold our mill rate as one of the lowest in the state, and that the mill rate has also stayed flat or gone down in several years in the last 10. I finally acknowledge that something must give and the money must come from somewhere in this year's difficult budget. But we are a community of homes and families, and I assert that the homeowner and the family in this year, in this cycle, under these financial circumstances and in this moment is not the place to lay that burden. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline Lerum, to be followed by Will Morrison.
Hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Caroline Larum. First and foremost, I hope you and yours are healthy and remain so. I am reading a letter that has been sent to you by a large number of community members to implore you to fund our special education budget appropriately, along with a special education audit. At the last public hearing and at every Board of Education meeting since June of 2019, parents have provided ample evidence of insufficient support for their children with special needs. This is a direct result of the program being underfunded. As you evaluate the special education budget, we ask for your earnest consideration of the following. Parents have repeatedly reported that special education teachers and paraprofessionals are trying their best, but they lack proper training and are stretched too thin. Parents have repeatedly reported their children regressing as a result of administrators minimizing their child's learning differences and denying services. This is due to an underfunded program with not enough services or service providers. Parents have repeatedly reported unconscionable delays in testing, which in turn prevents early intervention, which we all know is effective, cost-efficient, and in the best interest of our children. Recently, many GPS staff admitted that they are unable to speak freely on behalf of special education student needs for fear of retribution. This is reflective of a limited budget and lack of resources. The Greenwich Education Association President, Carol Sutton, reported at the February 2020 BOE meeting that GPS teachers were unable to provide over 1,000 service hours that are federally mandated because they are understaffed and overwhelmed. This has resulted in soaring outplacement costs, which parents have won handily. At this same meeting, several teachers spoke out stating that there are systematic problems involving special education across the district, including lack of training and staffing. Now more than ever, special education will need proper funding. Our most vulnerable children with special needs are regressing due to past failures in providing a free and appropriate public education. These failures have been further compounded by the school closure. Please ensure that our local education authority is properly funded to serve all our children. Our Board of Education, parents, and teachers have provided you with facts that support that they cannot adequately perform their job under the current financial constraints. We ask you to use your elected position to create a budget that allows for all children to receive a free and appropriate public education. Thank you so much, and stay well.
Thank you. Will Morrison, to be followed by Rita Baker.
Unmuted. Key button. Hi, I'm Will Morrison, longtime Old Greenwich resident, and I'm speaking about the 2020 Sound Beach Avenue Bridge project. And before I go through my remarks, I'd like to say thank you, as many other speakers have done, for your service and staying up late on nights like tonight. 400 Eastern Greenwich citizens were motivated to sign a letter to the BET saying that they were frustrated with the inability to collaborate with town officials regarding the regrading of Sound Beach Avenue 2.5 feet above the current bridge height. If this is implemented and poorly done, it will have a permanent negative impact on a culturally and scenically significant part of Old Greenwich, the entrance to Binney Park. The concern is not with the replacement of an old bridge with state funding. The concern is that because of poor quality information, there has been no collaboration. As a result, there is an increased risk of creating an indelible eyesore in a beautiful section of town. The DPW's project's public webpage does not mention raising the road to 2.5 feet, an activity not normally included in a bridge replacement. The page further states that the current project has been described through public hearings 2 years ago in the context of a proposed improvement to a nearby rotary as part of the municipal improvement process. This is true, but it did not mention that the project was denied approval by the P&Z despite interest in a park-like rotary design. There were unanswered concerns about an expansive raising of the avenue 2.5 feet. The signatories of the letter to the BET respectfully request that funding for the bridge replacement and road raise proposal be deferred to next year and be designated as a collaborative MI project to ensure that the community input be factored into an optimal solution. Utilizing the MI process for this significant and controversial project is the best route to ensure that the town's funds are wisely spent. Thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you. Rita Baker, followed by James Sprung.
Hello, my name is Rita Baker, and I've lived at the corner of Forest and Sound Beach Avenues for 35 years. My neighborhood is adjacent to the site of the proposed bridge replacement and road raise. 2 years ago, we fought and won our battle with DPW to stop a wildly oversized and aesthetically inappropriate project, which would have destroyed the scenic gateway to the village of Old Greenwich. This project, which included raising of a section of Sound Beach Avenue, was turned down by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Nevertheless, we knew the bridge still needed replacement, and we offered to work with DPW to assure the new bridge would fit into the natural landscape of Binney Park and the ambiance of the neighborhood. This was not to be the case. A few months ago, my neighbor saw a sign on a tree near the bridge in question, which called for tree removal for a bridge replacement. The sign was placed high on the back of the tree where absolutely no one but my neighbor could see it, and then only from her third floor window. In spite of our request to post the sign in a more visible location, it was simply removed and the tree cut down. We only discovered the bridge replacement project was in the works when my neighbor was asked for a construction easement. So much for transparency. I contacted the Department of Public Works in search of information. And in an email dated January 17, a senior engineer wrote, and I quote, "Bridge replacement projects are considered roadway maintenance projects and do not require MI approval. All public meeting requirements for this project have been met, and we do not anticipate any further public meetings for the bridge replacement, close quote. I pressed for more information and was told that the road above the bridge would be elevated 2.64 feet and the roadbed would be graded on either side by 100 feet. Ladies and gentlemen, although a shorter span, this was exactly what was denied by planning and zoning. How is it possible to simply ignore that decision and move forward? The neighbors would have welcomed some constructive discussion, but instead we're summarily and arrogantly dismissed. We have no idea what the project will look like, what will be the visual impact on the neighborhood and on Binney Park, what could be the unintended consequences of water diversion from the roadways. What about detours through the neighborhood during construction? This project is obviously a far cry from a road maintenance project, and we respectfully ask you to remove it from this year's budget and designate it as a municipal improvement. The neighbors are confident that if we work together with DPW, instead of against them, we can, in partnership, realize our mutual goals. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Jane Sprung, followed by Val Ramani.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Hello, good evening. This is Jane Sprung from District 10. These are my own views. And first, I'd like to thank the BET and the BOE and town leaders for all their hard work on figuring out the budget. My comments are general. Residents of Connecticut and Greenwich have been hit hard on many levels due to COVID. Jobs are insecure, businesses are desperate, and savings accounts have been demolished. We do not know what our future holds, but we do know it is not business as usual. I urge you to work in a bipartisan fashion to make every effort to reduce the town budget and reflect the reality that the financial resources of the town's taxpayers are intensely strained. I'm asking that you please consider eliminating all non-essential capital spending for fiscal year 21 for the town and BOE. Please strictly prioritize and only do absolutely essential projects. In addition, for operating, we all know that staffing costs represent 75% of the BOE, of the towns and BOE budget, and the healthcare costs and benefits are increasing. Are we thoroughly examining efficiencies in staffing? Given COVID-19, many large and small companies in Greenwich and in the state have been forced to furlough and reduce employees. As hard as this is, I hope that the BOE and town would take a close look at their staffing needs, as well as consider an overall % reduction in operating expenses across the board. In addition, I just want to say that I am in favor of tipping fees to cover our increase in cost of waste management so that we will not have a $3.7 million hole in our budget. Overall, I thank you for all the hard work that you do, and we ask that the town should take every appropriate measure to find prudent operational savings and to limit non-essential capital spending, such that the fiscal year 21 budget will be flat to lower, and fiscal year 21 would be flat to lower than fiscal year 20, and a negative mill rate be reached. It is also important that this mill rate be achieved through lower spending rather than increased borrowing or raiding the general fund, which we all know is not a sustainable long-term solution. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Now Val Ramani, to be followed by Beth McGillivray.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And first, let me thank you, as others have, for holding the meeting. I know these are challenging times, and we truly appreciate you holding it like this. I'm Val Ramani, a resident of Old Greenwich, and I'm here also to talk about the Sound Beach Bridge Replacement Project. And I'm here to support some of my colleagues in asking you to remove the $3.5 million budget item for this project from the 2021 budget, and instead allocate it to a municipal improvement status such that it can come to a public review. My family has lived in Old Greenwich for 15 years. We chose to buy here because of the charm and beauty of the town and its unique sense of place. And we enjoy this every day. We're lucky enough to be here. Until these very recent times, I traveled a lot to some wonderful places around the world. but every time I drive back into Old Greenwich, past the library, past Binney Park, I delight all over again in this special place that we call home. There's a sense of ease and joy that you get as soon as you drive in here. And like so many of my neighbors, I'm truly grateful to live in this wonderful corner of the world. Now, like everyone else, I understand that improvements have to be made, and I greatly appreciate those who are drawing up plans and seeking a budget for these improvements. But I too am very concerned about the rumors I'm hearing relating to the plans for the bridge improvement project. I'm anxious because we've seen no details, and this lack of transparency makes us fear what may be in the plans. We have little idea today about how the work may change our town forever and irreversibly. All I'm asking is that we have a public review so that we can get sight of what the plans are and understand what the options are to preserve the look and feel of our little town. This work will be at the very entryway to the town. It is so critically important to the character of the town and will have such lasting consequences. Surely it's appropriate and desirable for those of us who live and work here to see the details of these plans. Why would anyone want us not to? So I'm urging and asking you please to take the action needed for this to move to a public review. It's so important to us. And as I said, once the project is done, it cannot be undone. We're all keen to work together to make sure it's done in the very best way. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth McGillivray, to be followed by Julie Deschamps.
Hi, this is Beth McGillivray. Thank you for your valuable time. I wanted to talk about spending specifically in Glenville for a capital expenditure for widening the road. I think this is an area in the budget which can be eliminated during this time where we need to be fiscally responsible. I'm a resident of Glenville for 18 years. I have 4 children and am consistently daily traveling frequently in and around the town of Glenville. I am opposed to the $5 million plan to widen the road and add parking considerations. In the past year, there's been several utility companies working in Glenville, which has been responsible for many of the backups in traffic. This, in conjunction with the lights not being well synchronized, has had an impact on the flow. And therefore, I don't feel it's necessary for us to spend additional dollars to widen the road. It is stated that a new parking lot would also be added for the use of Glenville Pizza due to safety concerns. Safety. I am unaware of any accidents or deaths at the Glenville Pizza location. Yes, it's on a curve, but patrons of this long-standing establishment are careful. There are 2 lights surrounding this spot, so vehicles are not traveling at high speeds in town, coupled with the intersection of Pemberwick. It's not the government's responsibility to provide a parking area for Glenville Pizza, nor a high priority. Regarding increased parking for the G-Ville Deli, again, it's not the government's responsibility to provide parking for private businesses in Greenwich. Also note the Stop and Shop parking lot is accessible and has adequate parking too. Overall, the sidewalks in Glenville are in good condition. Some have recently been updated due to the digging and public works projects. In conclusion, I am against the capital expenditure, and I would hope the BET would take a good look at this during this fiscally responsible time in light of the current circumstances. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Julie Deschamps, to be followed by Wynn McDaniel.
Hi, Julie Deschamps. As a member of the Food Services Committee and Greenwich Recycling Advisory Board, I spent the past several years researching a reusable ware system for the district lunchrooms. And during my time on the PTA Council Green Schools Committee, I volunteered hundreds of hours implementing waste reduction strategies in the school cafeterias. I learned how transformative and cost-effective a reusable system can be if implemented effectively and responsibly. I now ask you to support a reusable ware system with the release of the $175,000 conditional on Board of Education approval of the most fiscally responsible, sustainable, and effective plan. Why should the funds be conditioned on board approval? Well, the proposal put before the BET for individual dishwashers in every school was not vetted or approved by the Board of Ed. This plan will cost over $1.1 million in total, $657,000 in capital, and $520,000 in operational costs. It will take 6 years to carry out, and in the end, it cannot be successfully implemented at all district schools. Yet, there is another plan available, a centralized dishwasher system. Reusable serviceware is transported from district schools to a central kitchen equipped with a dishwasher for sanitizing. The wares would be rinsed and sealed in insulated carriers to avoid cross-contamination during transport, as approved by the health department. The centralized proposal, in contrast, is estimated to cost only $87,000 in initial capital and $34,000 in operating expenses, a total of $121,000, a tenth of the cost of the plan before you. It could be implemented within 1 year with all schools participating. The plan would save $67,000 in operational expenses in subsequent years. This model has been successfully implemented at Palo Alto Unified School District with an annual net savings and significant waste reduction. Despite directives by the Board of Ed, the centralized plan has not been thoroughly vetted, and even the most basic research has not been undertaken to date. Instead, unsubstantiated reasons why the system will not work were put forward in the BET memorandum. Conditioning the release of funds on Board of Ed approval will give the administration adequate time to evaluate both proposals and give an apples to apples comparison without postponing the transition from disposables to reusables yet another year. Pushing off this decision another budget cycle will cost over $100,000. Over 1 million disposables will be thrown away, adding to our waste crisis, and students will continue to be taught that waste is acceptable. Let's not wait to implement the most responsible choice for our budget, environment, and children's education, a reusable ware system. Thank you.
Thank you. Wynn McDaniel, to be followed by Bob Strassel.
I think that's Tom Cornelius, Bill. Next.
Thank you. I skipped Mr. Cornelius, didn't mean to.
I'm sorry. Wynn was up and Tom was next. Let's let Mr. Cornelius go, and then we'll get right back to Wynn. Sorry, Wynn.
Okay. Good evening, BET members and guests. My biggest concern as Vice Chair of District 3 Chickahominy is what amount of traffic will be at Holly Hill. I believe tipping fees will be passed in May, which will increase traffic, in my opinion, at the facility by at least 20%. With the RTM's amendment leaving permit fees set at $25 last night, and approximately 120 to 140 permits as of now at the facility, I'm sure this figure will increase, as I said, 20%. Only bringing in revenue of $40,000 with 4,650 tons being brought in by these people. With residents using haulers averaging $120 to $140 a year in tipping fees, is this not a form of discrimination? Residents using haulers, with the residents using the haulers. If people with permits bring in 5 pounds of garbage per week using $112 per ton figure, that means they should be paying at least $140 a year, and now only paying $25. Why can't all residents pay the $25 fee and not pay tipping fees? Hopefully this gap can be looked at before someone sues the town with discrimination and can keep traffic at Holly Hill at a manageable level. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Wynn McDaniel, please, followed by Bob Strassel.
Okay, thank you. Again, Wynn McDaniel, District 7. I'm speaking on my behalf. Hello, BET members, and thank you for your hard work. I know this isn't easy. I would like to emphasize what has already been said about the uncertainties facing us as a town, given this crisis. The budget analysis that you have done was thorough, no doubt. However, it was before this crisis. The budget analysis and approval cannot go forward under a business as usual environment. There are major impacts to individuals and municipalities. Please review, and I emphasize, please re-review all town spending. In addition, I also believe that there should not be any new capital investments until we have better understand the implications of this crisis to our town. We need to think of this in terms of spending like it's your own money that you're spending coming out of your own pocket. We elected you and need you all to be prudent overseers of our town budget, given these significant circumstances that we're all facing. So again, I thank you for your time and for your hard work, and please take this into consideration.
Thank you. Bob Strassel, to be followed by Ashley Cole.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Just let me know. My name is Bob Strassel. I live in Cos Cob. I just wanted to touch base on a few reasons why we need the budget allocated for Central Middle School field option number 4. The stark reality is that we desperately need this field, not just for our town, but for our community, schools, our sports programs, and really most importantly, our kids. The current situation at CMS is pretty dire. In 2018 and 2019, the fields at CMS were closed about 50 times. And with every closure, that's a missed opportunity for the CMS students to participate in outdoor fitness and sports activities. In spring of 2019, the field was in such poor shape that it was never open. That's the baseball field. So this needs to change. And option 4, which is the mixed-use field, is the solution that works. To further compound this issue about Field 4, we're going to lose 2 fields at Greenwich High School. They're scheduled to be refurbished starting this summer. And those fields are going to be out of commission for up to 2 years. So the chronic lack of field space across Greenwich really just gets worse. So we need playable field space at Central now more than ever, for CMS students, for youth recreational activities, and for student athletes from schools all over town. Option 4 is the only solution that works. Option 1, grass fields, does not work. With field use capped at 25 hours, you're way beyond that with field use. So again, option 4 is the only option that works. So I just want to touch base, the BOE endorsed option 4, and they recognize that there's limited field space available townwide. And we have to make the best use of the space we have, and that hybrid option of Field 4 provides the best return on investment. So you have to say to yourselves, who's behind Field 4? Parents, coaches, volunteers, people who live in the town, people whose kids play sports. We don't want to have to tell our kids, hey, I'm sorry, you can't play sports today because we don't have enough fields. I mean, that's the current state of where we're in right now. It's not fair to our kids if we don't do something. Field 4 is the option that we need. The town of Greenwich can't afford to get it wrong at CMS. Please, I beg you, vote in support of option 4, mixed-use fields, and allocate the money. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Ashley Cole, to be followed by Nancy Burke.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi everybody. This is Ashley Cole here, longtime resident of Hillside Road. I'm also was on the Commission for Traffic Safety of Hillside. I'm on the Committee for Environmental Sustainability, and I'm a former PTA president. I want to tell you I support the BOE budget. And I especially support the Cardinal Stadium plan, and I would like to insist that the second egress be funded in phase 1 of the Cardinal Stadium plan. It's an important safety infrastructure piece that we really need. Greenwich High School is the only school in America of its size with 1 egress. It's a massive safety and design flaw. We can never let the safety and security of our students, let alone all our citizens, be sidelined and dismissed. So I would like to put that out there. I also know that we're in a very scary time here. It's a pandemic, and it would be easy to put all this on the back burner, as a lot of people are saying, because we don't have the money, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to take a different take on this. Kind of like an MBA student who's looking at a brand, because Greenwich in many ways is a brand. And when you're faced with a crisis, as we are, the last thing you want to do is stop investing in your brand. We have to continue. We have to continue to make our schools great, better, because if we degrade our schools, Greenwich becomes less attractive to new people. And let me mention right now that rentals are up 60% in this past month. So great public schools and infrastructure creates property values. Property values creates tax values, which run our town. So I would like to say that we need to continue investing in our town. It's the right thing to do. And that's it.
Thank you. Nancy Burke, to be followed by Arlene Lamazzo.
Nancy Burke needs to be, okay.
I think we just lost her, unfortunately. I hope she comes back.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't see her on my screen. Nancy, are you there? Arlene, would you like to go ahead? Arlene, please unmute yourself.
I think that's right.
You're there now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Good. I came here to fill in some specific details about that Sound Beach Bridge project. However, I think I have to give you some background information because I heard things tonight that was so extreme in their misinformation that I think we have to go back and look and see where some of that came from. So I'll give you a little history. A while back in 2018, the Department of Public Works proposed and had funding from the state to do 3 things. To replace the bridge because it was failing, it needed to be done. To create a rotary because what we have there now is never meant to be a rotary. And then they proposed raising the road where the library is. That is to say, between Harding Road, that area, and going north, where we have flooding there. And it was meant to mitigate the flooding. The community did not want that. And so that whole thing, when it came for municipal improvement, was denied because of the opposition from the community. However, what you have before you tonight is just the bridge. And the bridge does require a raising of the road, not the one in the previous proposal, just the raising of the road where the bridge is going to be placed. And it'll be a length of about 50 feet, not more, just where the bridge is. And you'll hardly know it. It'll be graded and graduated. Nothing will change with Biddy Park. There will be no tree removal, so I don't know where that came from. There's no intention to remove a tree. There was originally, but there is no longer. They've made an adjustment. There's no taking of private land. Some people thought we were going to take land from Parat. All of that is false. So let's just focus on the bridge. I'm going to give you the facts that I came to share with you. The bridge was built in 1925, was rehabilitated in 77. It's been rated in poor condition and must be replaced. That's why the state was giving us money before, and we're lucky that we're going to get some money now. The reason the bridge has to be raised where it is because the DEP has determined that the amount of flooding that we're going to have is going to be great. That is to say, the level of the water is going to be 20 inches higher within the next decade. So the FEMA has required that any construction in that area has to meet the 11-foot standard. And right now it's 9 feet. That's why it has to go up 2.5. Actually, it's 8.5. Now it has to go to 11. And that's a FEMA regulation. That's not negotiable. And
thank you.
Please don't think that the road raising is going to be the length of Sound Beach. It is only going to be where the road is.
Thank you, Arlene. Next, Paul Olmsted, to be followed by Allison LaRoe.
Mr. Drake, if I may, I would just, Mr. Olmsted, if you just hang on one second, just want to remind everybody, we still have about 10 or 12 speakers. We want everybody to have an opportunity to go before we let anybody go for a second round. If you're calling in on the phone, you can raise your hand if you'd like to speak by hitting *9, just a reminder. And we still have a huge attendance out there watching this. So if you do want to speak, I would say right now there's about 10 speakers left. So just raise your hand, and I wanted to do a quick reminder, and sorry to interrupt, Mr. Drake, and thank you.
And this is Jenny. I just need to jump in. Nancy Burke has returned, but she has something wrong with her audio. She may want to just call in by phone. We can try to let her speak, but we can't seem to unmute her or allow her to speak.
Okay, I think we're trying to contact her to let her know that, and thank you for that.
Thank you. We're all ears.
Okay.
Paul Olmsted, I think you're up.
Thank you very much. I'm Paul Olmsted. I'm a member of the RTM in District 5. My comments are my own. I urge the BET to adopt a budget that reflects the economic realities of the COVID-19 impact on the town and our residents. Revenues to the town are likely to be impacted, and funding our pension obligations will have to be increased. At the same time, the incomes of residents have been hurt, as will be property values. A flat or negative change to the mill rate for the next fiscal year is entirely reasonable in these conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Next up, Allison LaRoe, followed by Lucia Jansen.
Hi, how are you? My counterpart spoke earlier on this topic, but I did feel the need that I also wanted to add some of my own comments as well. We're speaking on behalf of a larger group of over 200 parents who are concerned about the safety and security measures at our public school building. We're concerned that they're not at an adequate level of security, and that the measures in place are not, like I said, they're not adequate. Visitors are just let into the building without much more than a buzz-in, and they're buzzed in by an overburdened secretary from the office down the hall. And once you're let into the building, no one even asks who you are or why you're there, and no one is even there to make sure that you go into the office to sign in. This is an extremely poor system, and frankly, it's dangerous. As we all know, prior to the school closures, school shootings were an all too regular occurrence. We cannot forget that these tragedies occurred just because we're not in the school buildings right now. Our children are at risk the way things are now. Most, if not all, the districts surrounding ours have personnel who monitor all visitors both into and out of the building, and have technology allowing a camera system which provides multi-angled viewpoints of the building. We are overlooking a serious issue that could have devastating consequences to our community. We must make this a priority going forward to make our buildings safe. I personally work in a neighboring town in a school building. And prior to this closure, I felt safer going to work than I did sending my own kid to the school. It's a gut-wrenching feeling as a parent. We're asking for our town to put the safety of our children and teachers at the top of the list, and we need to make our buildings safer and need to find the funding to get the personnel and equipment that's needed to do so. Please don't overlook this major issue and keep our children and our staff safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucia Jansen, followed by Kimberly Fiorello.
Good evening. My name is Lucia Jansen. I'm chairman of the Budget Overview Committee. On behalf of the BOC tonight, I would like to communicate the following message that was voted by the committee unanimously with a vote of 12-0-0. The statement is, the Budget Overview Committee appreciates all the work done by First Selectman, Board of Education, and the BET on the fiscal year 21 budget. The BOC notes that the current fiscal year 21 budget was constructed before the devastating impact of COVID-19 on our health, lives, and finances became apparent. The BOC requests the budget presented to the RTM reflect the financial realities of the COVID-19 crisis. And that completes the statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Kimberly Fiorello, followed by Laura Gladstone.
Great, thank you. Good evening. This is Kimberly Fiorello, RTM member from District 7, but I am speaking for myself. Thank you for having this open forum to hear from the community, and we do indeed have many needs, whether for our kids, our families, our business, or the environment. There are definitely legitimate roles that town government has to play, namely in education and protecting private property. But you on the BET will not be able to solve and meet all of our needs. You simply cannot know what we all need. So in order for us to be a thriving community with happy, engaged, and caring people, I would urge you to please limit your spending in a big way. The town government must leave more of our own earnings in our own pocket so that we can solve and address our own individual needs for our families that are so incredibly pressing, especially now more than ever. Only with a limited government with some fiscal restraint can Greenwich truly prosper. I urge you to look for operational cost reductions and rigorously reevaluate capital projects and make fair across the board reductions in order that Greenwich families, Greenwich businesses are indeed empowered to do the things that they need to do in their lives to get through these tough times. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Gladstone, followed by Elizabeth Dempsey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can.
Yes. Hi, it's Laura Gladstone, District 2, and also a member of the RTM. Speaking for myself, I want to thank the BOE for all your hard work. I wholeheartedly agree with Jane Sprung, Wynn McDaniel, Paul Olmsted, and Kim Fiorello that we cannot afford any new capital projects this year, and we really need to limit spending, especially in this time of the COVID crisis. I would like you to think very, very, very seriously about furloughing and having pay cuts for town employees, similar to what other people have had to do in town. Some of my friends have 30 or 50% pay cuts. And I think it would be a good sign for the town to show that we are all in this together. There are many, many, many people suffering. We have the strictest closures of any town in Connecticut, more than our neighbors in Stamford or Westport for beaches and parks. And there's no reason why we can either open those up or furlough employees. And I think that you saw that the town of Ansonia has done something very similar. So I would really hope that you would think very seriously about this and thinking about pay cuts across the board. Thanks.
Thank you. Elizabeth Dempsey, followed by Nancy Burke.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Dempsey. I've already sent you a letter, so I don't want to really just read that. I just thought I'd kind of speak off the cuff and to be a little bit more efficient, shorten what I want to say. I also support my fellow neighbor, Ashley Cole, and all her comments. I've been a 20-year resident and started on the Hillside Traffic and Parking Committee because, you know, for a while residents couldn't even get to their properties at times during dismissal or drop off or leave their properties. And so we've tried to work collaboratively with the school officials and population because we really do support the school. It is our flagship school and really should be to attract families to Greenwich and to keep it strong. Interestingly enough, as we started to go through and look at all the issues, we talked to school staff, we talked to school leaders, we had parents approach us, we listened to the PTA heads, and a second, and to be honest, even larger issue became the aspect of safety with egress. It started off with the KG&D architects who talked about how rare and unusual it is to have only one form of egress. And if you look at it, Greenwich High has the biggest population of people conglomerating in one location, and to have only one form of egress could be a big safety disaster for the school. So along with what is a incredibly significant remediation process that has to be completed, I just would urge you, as you do look at the capital items going forward, let's do this one right. And you would save a sizable amount of money that when you do start off the process, eventually at some point with Cardinal Stadiums, that you do the remediation at the same time and some of the construction and solve what really is an infrastructural issue for the entire town with the second form of egress. Because in my opinion, safety comes first. And again, thank you so much for all the hard work you're doing and parsing through all the priorities that are competing for the budget. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is Nancy Burke, followed by Charlene Barnes.
This is Jenny. So it says that her talking is disabled because she has an older version of Zoom. We would need to promote her to panelist to allow her to talk. Is that okay?
Would you do that for us?
Yes. Nancy, you should be up. Well, she'll be, there we go. So Nancy is now a panelist. Nancy, can you unmute yourself and speak?
She still doesn't have a microphone attached.
I think you may have unmuted me.
No, Nancy is now a panelist. Nancy, if you can't speak, we apologize, but you don't appear to have a microphone. So we really have no option but to put her back into the attendee role, unfortunately.
Okay. And then if we can call our last speaker, who is a repeat speaker, but as we said, we would permit that if you could call on your last speaker, Mr. Drake.
Yep, I can call on Charlene. For me, Mike, I see a lot of phone numbers. I don't think we've done any of the phone number people, but I'm happy to, if you say, well, let's allow Charlene to speak and then come to those who are calling in with telephones.
There's two more speakers after Charlene, and we'll cut it. The people with the phone haven't raised their hand, and that's why I reiterated how to do it. So we have the three left to go, and then we'll work to close it from there.
Thank you, Mike. Charlene?
One of the previous speakers mentioned several things about the Soundbeat project, including the various requirements, specific changes as proposed, and the different considerations. Our entire point is all of this would be really nice to know. Okay, we are basically want this communicated to us in a coherent and respectful manner. We want to know that our aesthetic and environmental concerns are taken into account. And we want to know that we, the neighbors and voters and taxpayers in Old Greenwich, the primary stakeholders here, are being heard and being treated like adults, basically. So like I said, we would like this to be in the different category. We would like a hearing on it. We'd like it communicated in a coherent and respectful manner. And we are about to spend an enormous amount of money on this is what's proposed, and a hearing and putting it off just isn't unreasonable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arlene Lamazzo has a raised hand, followed by Michael Mora. Arlene, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. People are asking for hearings. This project for the bridge was started in 2012. There have been 3 public hearings. Unfortunately, the people who spoke to you were not here when those were held, but there was one on November 11, 2013, another in the spring of 17, and one in January of 18. I must say some of the people who are asking for this had attended the meeting in 2018. So it's not that they didn't ever see it. So let's correct that right away. Just a second. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. I think people don't understand that the money that's being proposed here is being paid for by the state 100% for the construction, which is quite nice. And we are lucky we kept that, because the last time we turned the project down because the neighbors didn't want the big project, we thought we lost our place. And we were very fortunate that we kept our place just for the bridge. And there will be absolutely no change in the aesthetics. It will look, the road will look exactly the same, except there'll be this slight rise in this one place. That's it. It'll have the same look. It'll have the same stone wall that's there. Nothing visually will change. I just want to make that point.
Thank you, Arlene. Our idea here is not for a debate, and we understand you're in favor of the project, and we want to recognize all the residents' concerns. Thank you. That brings us to our last, I'm sorry, Mr. Drake, I'm taking away your job.
That's okay. Mr. Mora, last speaker, it seems. Please go ahead.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Board of Estimation and Taxation, for this opportunity to speak. My name is Mike Mora. I'm a teacher at Western Middle School. I was the varsity baseball coach for 18 years. I coached youth and volunteer for youth sports in town, such as the Coscow Crushers and Cal Ripken. Speaking for the topic of Central Middle School fields, living during this pandemic is more apparent than ever how important our fields and parks are in Greenwich. The Board of Education heard all the residents of Greenwich and their views on this topic. They voted 6-1 in favor of option 4. It is the most logical decision, and it supports the student body at CMS and the athletes and families of the town of Greenwich. The town Parks and Recreation Department, in addition to the consultant that the town of Greenwich hired, have stated that the grass-only option will not work due to the amount of hours that the field is used. The facts have been stated in multiple venues throughout this discussion. The consultant that the town hired stated that the grass-only option will not work due to the amount of hours that just the Central Middle School student body uses the field. This is without adding in additional groups outside the school day. The field conditions at CMS are in dire need of attention. Option 4 addresses this issue by giving students both a grass option and a turf option on days when the field condition is poor. It also gives the grass a chance to rest by having the turf available. Field space in town is already maxed out. Greenwich High School will, in the very near future, be returfing fields 6 and 7 and 3 and 4. If those fields are unplayable, if those fields are unusable, where will the students be going to play? If option 1 is funded, then add CMS to the list of unusable fields in the town. As stated before, the grass will not be able to sustain the amount of use. It is fiscally irresponsible to fund option one, knowing that the consultant, the professional in the industry of turf versus grass, stated that the grass won't work. The town park and recreation department also stated that they support the turf option and need the turf to offset the grass usage in town. And the Board of Education listened to all sides of the discussion and also made the decision to support option number 4. Please hear and know all the facts about what this town needs to support our student athletes and families. The groups below have all signed the Fields for Kids email that was submitted to the BET. James Lochran, president of the Greenwich Youth Football League, Tom Casazone, executive director, OGRCC, Pat Bria, president, Coscob Crushers Youth Football, Kurt Putnam, Greenwich Soccer Association and Greenwich High School, varsity soccer coach Michael Fina, Greenwich High School boys rugby head coach, Aaron Marshenko, Greenwich High School girls rugby head coach, Keith Rico, president, Greenwich Cardinals youth hockey. Thank you so much for your time.
I want to thank you. Before we close this, I'd like to offer a few comments and a few observations for the public. We still have well over 100 attendees besides TV. Again, I'd like to reiterate my thanks for the town IT department and for our Channel 79. I would like to say that today is Tuesday and the Board of Estimate and Taxation members have an incredibly long week ahead of them, figuring out judgment, decisions, all on behalf of the community. And the 12 of them, including myself, will do it with passion you have never seen. There will be hours and hours of communication, number crunching, making decisions, making backup plans. I cannot tell you the work that they will do. I can't tell you the work that they've done. We got here tonight with a transition team. I cannot thank that transition team enough. I'm looking at Ms. Fasalotis, Ms. Moriarty. We handed jobs to every member almost on the BET that we could think of. Mr. Drake drew the short end of the stick tonight, having to conduct our public hearing and never doing it on Zoom before, and he did a wonderful job, and I want to thank him. And I just want to say to our community, this virus is not going to stop this community. It's not going to stop the BET. It didn't stop the RTM last night. We're still going to make progress as a community, and Greenwich is still going to be the best place to live in, invest in, raise a family, and going forward. So on behalf of the Board of Estimate and Taxation, I would like to offer my sincere thanks to everyone who participated and watched, and we'll see you. Our decision day is next Monday, and we will be on, we'll be taped, and we'll be working all day on that. And again, thank you, everyone. With that, I'll entertain a motion to abstain, to close our public hearing.
Motion to adjourn.
That's better. Motion by Ms. Crumick, seconded by Mr. Raymer. All those signify by raising your hand, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.